Here.
Mr. Thornton,
Present.
Mr. Urban. Mr. Lovich.
Here.
Ms. Radel.
Here.
10 present.
We now have public comment on the proposed ordinance amending the 2022 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County. We have a couple slips here. Mr. McCabe?
Not on that one. I want the open meeting, you know.
Okay, all right. That's fine. And Amy Isa? Okay.
Oh, I can speak first?
Yeah, if it's on the, yeah, it says about the grant.
To the grant.
Yes, you can
Oh,
speak.
that's not, that's for the grant. Oh, that's, okay, sorry.
This is on the election. Yeah, this is, yes, you can speak.
Oh, okay, cool. I thought I'd be speaking at the end of the meeting.
Steve's here.
So can I move up?
Thank you. You can speak at the podium.
Yeah, I saw.
Greg, you're gonna put the microphone on. You're usually responsible for that, so don't forget.
I feel special and privileged to have like a microphone. This is phenomenal. So hi, I am Amy Bezick. I believe 3 minutes, correct? Is there a
Yes,
clock
and
that I
what's your
can watch?
municipality?
Oh, I am in Edwardsville.
Okay, thank you.
However, well, and 44. So I'll bring that up. So I'm Amy Bezick from Amy Bezick Photography. My business started in 2014 as AB Photography. I've been photographing out of my house located in Edwardsville, 104 square feet
Wait,
dining room.
I'm sorry, Amy. Is this the election integrity grant or the ARPA grant?
The ARPA.
Okay, I apologize. So
That's why I was like, are you sure I'm supposed
is
to
a
speak
little bit
first?
later. I'm sorry.
Yes, no, okay.
We have to. I apologize.
No, it's all good. I go with the flow.
Yeah, we'll call you back up later.
That was a good warm.
Practice run. Is there anybody who wants to speak on this agenda item just for the public hearing? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, opposed? Meeting is adjourned at 5:53, so we have a few minutes before the 6 o'clock meeting. Oh, council, mute your microphone.
Recording stopped.
47, and tomorrow sunny clouds for your Wednesday, high 65. Thursday and Friday mostly sunny. Thursday's high 63. Friday 67, 63 now. Outside the river studio at
Hi, welcome to Harveys Lake. Can I take order one of your orders? Actually, I'm picking up an online order for Diane Kalman. Okay. You can pull up. Thanks. Thanks so much.
Have a great night.
You too. Kidding me? You didn't say that there were not many Fucking nice meeting. I knew I should have been there. Looks like at that meeting because it looks like they're going to let people speak. They didn't advertise that, so it's fucking bullshit. Because I just put it on my phone and somebody got up to speak and they're like, oh, wait, are you for like the grant or whatever? And she's like, yeah. And they're like, oh, wait, that's a
601, we have to.
Yeah, council members, can you make sure your mics are green again? Really?
Keep in mind. We have to.
This guy here, this guy.
All right, it's 6:01. We're going to call the meeting.
Recording in
to order. We're gonna do the
progress.
Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. We do a roll call, Ms. Lauren?
Mr. Venus.
Present.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Here.
Mr. Lombardo. Ms. McDermott. Here. Mr. McGinley.
Present.
Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Perry.
Here.
Mr. Thornton.
Present.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Wilovich.
Here.
Ms. Radel.
Here.
All present.
For recognitions and ceremonial proclamations, I just want to mention that earlier today, Mr. Robertson held a employee recognition event for employees that have been with Luzerne County or the Luzerne County courts. The president, Judge Vogue, was there as well. And I want to just name the employees who received a proclamation at that ceremony. Kristen Tokash, Courts, 46 years. Vincent Alessandri, Domestic Relations, 46 years. Nancy Gahan, District Courts, 46 years. John Layton, Domestic Relations, 43 years. Michael J. DeSoy, District Attorney's Office, 43 years. Joseph Yeager, Public Defender, 42 years. Joseph P. Cotter, Domestic Relations, 41 years. Linda Sorber, District Courts, 41 years. Catherine Hilscher, Community Development, 41 years. Michael J. Beckley, Building and Grounds, 41 years. Christina Kleckner, Domestic Relations, 40 years. Anne Marie Grasky, Probation Services, 40 years. Anne Marie Coughlin, District Courts, 40 years. So we just want to one more time congratulate the employees and thank them for their years of service. We're grateful to have them in the county for such a long time. Any deletions from the voting agenda? Hearing none, we have a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to adopt the agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstention? Opposed? The agenda is adopted. Moving on to public comment on agenda items only. Mr. McKay, was it on this agenda that you wanted to speak?
No, it's not on the agenda.
Not on the agenda, okay. So I don't have any slips then for this agenda. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on these agenda items only? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. We have a
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, opposed? Minutes are adopted. Motion to adopt ordinance amending the 2022 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County election integrity grant.
So.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. McGinley.
Yes, are we going to add the amendments after?
That's the way it's set up on the agenda. Attorney Keene, should we?
Amend,
it-
vote in the amended.
Should vote on the amendments first, right?
Are we making the amendment first?
Okay, so then, okay, the person who made the first and the second?
Mr. Lombardo and Ms. McDermott. Ms. Roth?
Okay. Could anybody make the motion with the amendment? So what happened, if you guys remember, at our last meeting, was the ordinance that was posted did not have the line items and the expenditures there. So can we have a motion to add those in?
So.
Second.
All right, on the question. The second ordinance that's in our packet, page 3. Does that have all the amendments in there?
Yes.
We just vote on that then?
Well, that's with the amendments, so that's
Okay,
it.
that's fine. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second by Mr. Lombardo and Mr. McDermott. Now we will roll call on that one,
Some of the amended version.
the amended version.
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. McGinley.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Mr. Thornton.
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Wilovich.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes,
Unanimous.
so the ordinance passes with the amendments. That wasn't just the amendments, that was the ordinance with the amendments. So we're okay, right? So we're in the second one? Okay. Okay, that ordinance is passed. Number 2, motion to introduce ordinance amending the Luzerne County zoning map to rezone one parcel of property totaling 41.17 acres in Newport Township from MI mining district zone to R2, 2-family residence district zone.
So move, Wilovich. Second.
Roll call?
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. McGinley.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Mr. Thornton.
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich.
Yes.
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Unanimous, the ordinance is introduced. So now we have public comment on non-agenda items. Amy Bezick.
Hello again, everyone. And I actually have a letter of recommendation from Mr. Is it Robertson? From 44 Council specifically in regards to this grant. So if somebody has an Apple, I could just airdrop it to you. But as it looks like everybody has HPs, so I can email that to you later. So I am Amy Bezick from Amy Bezick Photography. My small business started in 2014 as AV photography based out of my home studio, located technically in a living room in my half a double, which is about 104 square feet. I have been in business since then. And when COVID came in 2020, and I was advised I wasn't essential, first that was a hard blow to ego. Because any human who's told they're not essential to this planet is just emotionally hard to accept, especially when you're a business owner and a small business owner, and that's the only thing that provides your income. So that was a really scary time. And in 2020, when we closed down and reopened, I want to say it was in October, and social distancing started, that's when I realized my studio was too small. If I had a family of 5 in, there was no way for me to actually social distance. And then everything started coming together, and I realized that I needed to move my location out of my house and into a commercial property. So from 2020 until 2021, I was researching and I found a space, actually reaching out to put a mural on the building because I'm also a vice president of the Street Art Society, where we've been painting murals all over the West Side. That's a nonprofit, that's something different. So I purchased the building in November of 2021. It was a month after I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So from 2020 until 2021, it was weird. So it was twilight zone with COVID, and then cancer came in. So that was more of a twilight zone, but I still kept going. I purchased the building. All of the estimates that came in from the contractors and subcontractors at that time were on point. For example, the electric came in about $35,000, but right now it's currently costing $58,000 due to inflation. The roof in the beginning was on point at 33 and some odd change, but recently cost $50,000. So with COVID, it didn't just hurt small business. The after effect with inflation, it's still happening. And of course, I'm over budget. So this is why I'm requesting some type of grant funding, something to do with this grant to assist in small business. And what this grant will do to benefit the area and my local small business, I will actually be able to have interns, employees, because there'll be space. This building is located at 1231 Wyoming Avenue in 44. It was the old auto body paint world, and now it's being renovated to be a photo studio. And I am just requesting any kind of assistance because we're taking a dead building to a live building.
Thank you, Ms. Bezick.
You're welcome.
Mr. McKay?
Yeah, Council, the last couple of months, we heard things about the election. County Council was trying to interfere with Election Bureau. So my concern is the sanitary. Well, 4 years ago, Wyoming Valley Sanitary put a tax on us, and we're paying for 4 or 5 years now. Lackawanna County dumps into Luzerne County and they don't pay a penny. So I want to see if council can get involved and see why Luzerne County is paying this money and Lackawanna County dumps into Luzerne County to the river and they don't pay a penny. Matt Cartwright gave them grants about 5 different times of $5 million. You know what he's doing? He's protecting the people from Lackawanna County so they don't have to put a tax. So I wish you guys to get involved and look into it. And my other concern is, is the Lackawanna County Council or commissioners just approved the grant for veterans. They don't have to pay a county tax. I wish you guys to try to honor our veterans and get involved with something like this too, you know? Thank you.
Any other members that wish to speak that are here or on the Zoom? Sure. Just state your name and the municipality you reside in.
Diane Cowman, I'm from Kingston. I am the owner and director of Second Family Memory Care Center in downtown Wilkes-Barre. And I did apply for the grant. And I just wanted to say that my service is adult daycare for folks with Alzheimer's and related dementias. We actually opened in October of 2020, which everybody said we were crazy, but we're still in business and we're growing, and we're providing care to folks so that they can remain at home, not go into nursing homes, and also to give their caregivers a much needed respite. What I applied for was to expand our services so that we can open 2 additional spots in our building and have a residential center for folks, the same population. As you know, during COVID, so many of the deaths in Pennsylvania were from nursing home residents. And the research shows that smaller facilities that are inclusive, and what we want to do is make it a residential facility, but also a small dementia village where everything would be all inclusive, such as there would be a little coffee shop, there would be a newsstand, a store, a beauty parlor, a gym, and other things like that, so that we can not only give these folks the quality of life that they deserve, but also prevent them from dying sooner than they need to due to infectious diseases such as COVID. So I appreciate any consideration you can give us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Okay. I just have one email for public comment. It is from City Brand. Oh, sure. Just state your name and the municipality you reside in.
My name is David Griggs. I'm a member of the Islamic community in Luzerne County off of Scott Street.
What is your last name? Sir?
Griggs, Griggs.
Thank you.
I reside in another county, but I came here and represented.
Hold on one second. Do you own property or have any business in Luzerne County?
Yes, I work at Gale Scent right here, 125 Main Street. From time to time, I have a sellers and buyer's relationship with that store.
Okay, so okay, I'm just gonna get the opinion of, can I get the opinion of council members? We stuck to the sunshine law the last several meetings, and if somebody's from out of the area, out of Luzerne County or doesn't own property, then we're not allowing them to speak. Do any council members have an issue with following that rule?
I said this before, I mean, public comment should be public comment. I don't think you should have to be from Luzerne County. I think you're stepping all of the constitutional rights. You can nod your head.
Mr. Willoughby?
Yes, we have had people talk on Pine Township and Susquehanna County.
We'll allow it. We'll allow it.
All right, my name is David Griggs. 2020, I was arrested in this county for drug trafficking. I went to a federal institution. I stayed in the federal institution for 17 and a half years. I came home. It was a federal, in the federal halfway house, and I joined the care court program. And that care court program, I wasn't allowed in it because my record was as a violent felon, and that's what I'm considered because my whole life was based on being in jail. Nevertheless, they let me in the program. When I got in the program, I met TJ. Being in the program with TJ, he really meant to me because I came in with a crazy attitude. I didn't trust the system. I didn't trust people like y'all. And he guided me through a lot of things. You know, I've been home 5.5 years, and being home, I made a documentary for the care court program. I'm a member of Peer to Peer. It's a re-entry program in Lackawanna County that helps people that come home. I haven't had a hot yawn. I haven't had police contact. My parole officer calls me on a daily basis when people come home. The state parole board calls me on a daily basis when people come home to help people. And I wouldn't have got that push if it wasn't for TJ. TJ helped me and a lot of other people in my area in the care court program. And being though he was a person like us, we trusted him and he has really, really guided me. And through his guidance, you know, I've done did a lot of things. You know, I've been on TV, you know, not to boost myself or anything like that. But I had to have a starting point somewhere, and he's the one that started me. You know, my credentials in Lackawanna County is real, real good. I mean, the news people, they contact me sometimes, you know. I'm doing real, real good for myself. And if I didn't have him, I wouldn't be messed up. I remember when I went to Williamsport where my family lived on a Christmas holiday and the buses wasn't running no more. And if I didn't get back on time, that I would have went back to the federal penitentiary, and TJ came and helped me. The guy to me is a very helpful person. This guy to me, to other people that I know, is very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griggs.
Y'all know me, TJ Wilkes-Barre. Basically, there was an opinion and I wasn't allowed to help people in Luzerne County. You guys voted me out, voted someone else in. I think I basically walked the walk and talked the talk. I think I could have helped a lot more people, maybe even help someone not die, not overdose, maybe not go back to jail. But because someone not died. We all have people that in our families are addicts or ex-felons. And if Luzerne County really cared, they would have chosen me. This was nothing about the 6 people that voted against me, don't like me. And I get that, that's okay. But people are gonna suffer because you make wrong decisions. And the 5 people that voted for me, I'm very honored, very honored. I wanna thank you. But as far as the opinion, I wanna talk about the opinion with the county. Any 6th grader could see that I qualify. Partial B, 8-2B, at the time of appointment through his or her term, county minimum had a citizen of the United States and a resident of Luzerne County. I meet those. And then it says, once you're appointed to a board, you need to vacate it if you commit a felony. It says vacate. They cheated from state law. I have a real estate license. I have a mortgage license. I have insurance license, all by the state. My crime was in 1986. I am now 57. When is enough for people? If Luzerne County cares, you would be forgiving. 6 of you are not forgiving. 6 of you don't care. The state law says denial of a license due to conviction. Applicant has been convicted of a crime of moral turpitude or felony in any jurisdiction of a crime which, if committed in the Commonwealth, would constitute a crime of moral turpitude or felony. Pretty much the same thing as a charter. They might have copied it. So they could deny me. I passed the muster for the state. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times. I just didn't pass the muster to 6 of you because you don't like me. Because I argue with you. If you need a tissue, I'll give you a tissue. But you hurt the community by not picking me. I could have helped so many people. And just so you know, I'm not going to quit. I'll have hundreds of people give you testimonies. But as the Lord said, the left and the right hand aren't supposed to do that. I brought 1 person. I didn't want to. I'm not bragging. I care more than Luzerne County cares because I do it out of my own time, my own money. By the way, when I picked them up, it was Christmas Day. I left my kids. Did I not? I left my kids on Christmas Day for a Muslim black man that I mentored. How much can someone care?
Thank you, Mr. Pinchot.
So anyway, I think that the charter needs to be changed, and I think that I'm going to keep on helping without you 6.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Okay, so then I have one email that needs to be read in. I'll read it quickly. This is from Cindy Brannon, Wright Township. Madam Chair, Radel, Vice Chair Lombardo, member of the council. This letter is referencing the formal complaint filed on September 5th, 2022 regarding the railroad tracks on Crestwood Industrial Drive or County Road 25. If it is Luzerne County's position for the law office of Elliott Greenleaf that the danger located near the railroad tracks is a danger the county was unaware of. The email exchange copied of screenshots and attached this letter between a member of FORLC and Mr. Larry Flesh, county engineer, would negate that position. I'm attaching the screenshots of email correspondence. I'm also referencing an article titled Luzerne County Council takes final step to secure infrastructure spending, posted on September 17, 2022 in the Dallas Post for two reasons. One, we are asking if this newly changed law in 2020 that affords the county $3 million from the LSA money be shared with all residents of Luzerne County. $55-51 million should not go to one bridge when there are 120 miles of county-owned roadway in desperate need. Two, the list of proposed roads mentions Crestwood Industrial Drive or Wright Township. Why would that be a consideration since the county just spent weeks there, half completing a job of patching? This is also proof negating the reply to my formal complaint regarding the railroad tracks that cross Crestwood Industrial Drive. Either the road was proposed to be redone in this article with no inspection of the road, or there was incompetence in the investigation that allowed missing the extreme danger near the tracks marked with safety cones. Luzerne County just replied via their legal counsel denying knowledge of the danger as the reason for not elevating this concern to the Pennsylvania Utilities Commission. Holly Gillian, PUC engineer, will be inspecting the work done to repair this location and inform me in a phone conversation that there will be engineers, so they rely on the county or Commonwealth to elevate dangers such as this crossing. If Crestwood Industrial Drive was inspected and recommended this needing to be redone, why did the PUC receive a concern for the tracks by Mr. Flesh? It is important to FORLC that our council remain informed on legal matters regarding roads. Please do not allow these dangers to go unaddressed or allocate $50 million to one bridge when there are residents all over the county traveling 120 plus miles of dangerous county roads. Thank you, Cindy Brandon. Any other members of the public?
I'd like to comment on Mr. Fitzgerald's comments.
Okay.
I find it really annoying that we sat here and got an opinion. And I ran this charter language by someone else, a part of Luzerne County law office. And they're stated that if it was meant to be that, it would be saying that in that charter, which means you don't get to interpret what somebody was thinking when they wrote a law. The fact of the matter is the law is the law, the words are the words, and you don't get to determine things different. I just want to put that out there because I'm hoping going forward that we get some opinions that match what I read. I'm getting thoroughly discussed.
Sure. Ms. Miscavige, we did put him on the eligibility list. So contrary to the opinion we received, we did put him on the list to be able to be voted on. So he was on there. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, opposed. It's 6:24. You guys, council, you need a 5-minute break, or we should keep moving? All right, we'll just keep moving on to the work session. Council, do you have any issues with us moving the booth presentation to number 1 since she's here in person?
I think we should. And I would like to have the county manager at the end, county manager minute or whatever it is. They're gonna be here. Let's get the other people or guests.
All right, at 6:24, we're gonna call the work session to order. We already did a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. Could I have a roll call, Ms. Lawrence?
Mr. Venus.
Present.
Mr. Liscavige.
Here.
Mr. Lombardo.
Here.
Ms. McDermott. Here. Mr. McGinley.
Present.
Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Perry.
Here.
Mr. Thornton.
Present.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Lovett.
Here.
Ms. Radel.
Here.
Often.
Any additions or deletions?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay, just so we know, we're adopting that with that we're
The
moving
changes that were made.
booth to 1 and manager minute to 6.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, opposed, the agenda is adopted. For number 1, we will have the booth presentation. Mr. Swett, Ms. Floyd.
Good evening. I have Robin Booth here from Booth Consulting LLC. We summarize the process of when we started with Booth to where we are today. So Robin's here. She'll take it from here.
Good evening. First of all, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to update you all. You know, there's been a lot of activity, a lot of positive feedback, a lot of participation in the application process. As promised, we were able to get it done relatively quickly. I think we got it done and the applications in probably within 30 days or 45 days tops of when we were actually contracted. So I want to give y'all an update, and I want to let you all know, because I know I heard one constituent today, and I'm expecting you all probably get a lot of phone calls. So I really believe information is valuable for you all to be able to address questions as well. So we want to share. Just keep in mind, when I say uniform guidance, I'm referring to the federal awards requirement. So this is not a Robin rule. This is not my choice. This is what the federal government says when you want to use these dollars. So when I say uniform guidance, that's what I'm referring to throughout the presentation. When I say final rule, I'm referring to the Treasury's final rule that they published on January the 6th about how the eligibility requirements for these funds. So the uniform guidance is kind of the financial and the monitoring and how you manage. The ARPA is eligibility. They are not subjective. They are not dependent upon the evaluation team or booth or anybody. The rules are the rules. You'll see I have know the rules because that's going to be kind of the temperature we have today. Okay, did I? Okay, so these are a couple of just some summary information from the application process. So we received 140 applications for $219 million, and Luzerne did not quite get that. So by type, these are we just organize them right now by type so you understand. You can understand the percentage of the total funding if you look at the pie chart, but that's what we've gotten in, 140 applications for $219,000. Luzerne received approximately $112,000. So it's a little bit unbalanced right there. A million, I'm sorry, million. Just what we've also done, a lot of the ARPA plans, especially on Treasury, they've been grouping the efforts based on kind of categories from a community perspective, from arts and culture, community awareness, childhood development. So we took your applicants and put those in those similar categories so that they're kind of consistent with what the Treasury has put out there in other counties and cities throughout the US. So most of your spending is community and wellness, local economic recovery, and social infrastructure. So that's to kind of give you a breakdown of your spending. Now, that was the ARPA. Now, we also did an internal project application. So we did another application where we had your internal departments and divisions kind of do a formal application of projects. From that, we received 10 projects for $17 million. That's what internally they're saying. I need to preface this with, these are all applications. We have not gone through and done the full eligibility determination, risk assessment, or budget allowability. I'll talk later about how that's phase 2 and I, but this is the initial screening. So consider this self-certified. The applicants, based on the trainings we did two application information trainings. We did training with the internal. They had to select which expense category from the Treasury rules that their project fell into. Now we're going to do a full determination to see if in fact that's the appropriate category. So please understand this could change, and this probably will change. These are not, I'm going to say, vetted eligibility determinations or categories right now. This is the applicants, what they've selected based on their understanding where they believe their project is. So throughout all of these slides, please keep that in mind because we're still in the the assessment phase. So then on the internal, just so you'll know by the departments, buildings and grounds, engineering, operations, that's how that $17 million is just another way of looking at how the monies were requested. These are all requests from your internal project. So what's going to happen now? I'm sure some of you, application screening, where we are, we're doing the initial screening. The initial screening is, did you submit a complete application? Did you include all of the required forms? Are you registered in SAM.gov or at least have submitted your registration? Are you not on the excluded party list? So this is just the initial screening to determine if the application in itself is processable. Because it may be that it wasn't, but let me explain. We did over 150 technical assistance sessions with your applicants before they submitted the application. So not only did we do 2 trainings, we also had technical assistance And we did over 150, so we answered questions. We tried to be proactive to give them the best opportunity to submit an application that would at least get through the initial screening process. So that's where we are now. We're expected to be finished up by 9:30 this Friday. That's kind of the drop dead date. So they know that if you don't respond or give us the missing item or clarification, your application won't be processable after September 30th. That might impact some of you all. So just please keep that in mind, that if you get a citizen or someone that has a concern because they received notification that we couldn't process their application, just remember, we did training, we did technical assistance. They got 5 business days to respond to any request. So we did everything we could just to have a complete application. So you can provide them with that information. So it's 5 phases. The next phase is the biggest phase. For us, we're doing the eligibility, risk, and budget. So eligibility, ARPA. Is this project based on what they've presented, does it meet the ARPA eligibility? If so, what category? Are they a subrecipient or a beneficiary? That's the kind of then risk assessment. And some of this are on the slides. I'm sorry, I brought my water. So some of this are on the following slides, a summary of what we're doing from the initial screening phase to how we're handling that. I will say before we tell somebody their application can't be submitted, we're giving a list to the county. So you all know beforehand. It won't be, thank you so much. I won't pass out. And trust me, if I fall, you'll have to call AAA to get me up. Because I can't. Oh, thank you so much. So, and then non-responsive, as I said, we're giving them 5 business days. We're doing everything we can to give them the opportunity. The next part, and this is just to remind you, eligibility, final rule. Risk, uniform guidance. The uniform guidance says that we have to do a risk assessment. If you are determined to be high risk, that has to be given to the evaluation team so that they know, okay, this is high risk. We're using the risk factors straight from uniform guidance. So it's not subjective. The rules are the rules. They look at prior financials, prior history. They look at your experience with other grants. These are risk factors. You can go read that section of the uniform guidance and see them for yourself. And then the budget is allowability. Uniform guidance, subpart E, the entire section, if the cost is allowable. Some of these grants, it's gonna be tough because not knowing the rules, they're kind of proposing costs that federal, I always say taxpayers don't pay for. Taxpayers can't pay for lobbying. Taxpayers can't pay for advertising because we can't brand your business. Taxpayers can't pay for business meals. You just can't do it. If you're a meal program, one thing, but not, we're having a meeting and you want the taxpayers, because that's what federal award dollars are, taxpayer dollars. So as I said, we're giving them 5 total days for this assessment too. So they got through initial screening. So if you get through initial screening, you won't get any correspondence. So if you don't hear from us after like the 3rd or the 4th, you kind of, okay, I'm in the assessment phase. In the assessment phase, this is when it's going to get tricky. This is when we're just going to have to follow the rules. So you may hear from your constituents somewhere after October 17th, because that's where we'll tell them if they fail to respond, we'll tell them that we can't process your application any further. So we're not telling anybody they're denied. We're just telling them we can't process it. So then we give it to your evaluation team. We give them an incomplete application, and ultimately y'all be the ones that tell them or make whatever decisions you want. But we're not telling them no. We're just telling them we can't process. And we're being very careful with that language. Evaluation, this is the evaluation team. Whoever that is, whoever you all determine who's the evaluation team. What we do is we give you recommendations. 1, is the project eligible, yes or no? That's the assessment we'll give you. 2, what risk category, low, medium, or high? And then 3, are the budgeted costs that they're requesting allowable? So we're giving that to the evaluation team. You all use that along with the other evaluation factors to make your decisions, whoever that evaluation team. So we don't make decisions. We just give recommendations. You use the information to make informed decisions. So and for anybody on that evaluation team, pay attention to those sections of the uniform guidance. It is merit-based. It is not because I really like that constituent. It's not, you can't, if you do, you really run the risk under audit of those of those costs being determined not to have been eligible. It's really clear on the federal side, the merit-based. So the evaluation factors we've given you are merit-based. So your evaluations, please, please, please make them merit-based. I've audited counties. I've come in and said, you know what? That didn't meet the grant requirements. And once we determine that the grant didn't meet the requirements, every cost you spent is recaptured. So just not to scare you, but just to pay attention to that. So we're expecting this to last till October 31st. We have aggressive dates. We have a whole team of grant specialists and auditors. I didn't really talk about it. The grant specialists are dealing with the eligibility. Auditors are doing risk assessment and budgets. We're trying to get this done so you want to notify your constituents. What you don't want to happen is a 3 or 4 month lag with no communications to 140 organizations that really need the money. Either way. So that's our goal, October 31st. And then you all, the evaluation, y'all tell us. It's either award under ARPA funding or award under lost revenue, which you don't have a lot of. So just understand, and that'll be, we'll give you those stats and numbers as we go through the process for non-award. So that'll be your decisions to make. And we're hoping to have something, this is aggressive. And that's why we said that evaluation team, if you're going to be in that team, just go back October 11th to October 31st. We're asking the county to do the evaluation of the applications. That's for 20 days. So then after that, we get into the grant execution process. That's when we're going to do a whole nother webinar again to explain how your subrecipient agreement or your beneficiary agreement. There's certain forms. I'm not going to go over it, but these are the forms that are required and the kinds of information that'll be required as a part of your grant execution. So we'll give completed packages to you all who'll probably give them the legal. But what we'll do is we'll give you templates early so that legal can review the agreements, the template of the agreement for subrecipient and beneficiary, so we can work from agreements that have been reviewed. You don't have to dive into every agreement. But this is so you'll know what'll be in the grant execution process. So then now there's approved council projects. You all approved 16 million. And those are 8 or 9 projects. They fall, you'll see in red, they're the expenditure categories per the Treasury rule. So initially it was thought that all of your projects were not eligible under ARPA and you were going to have to put them in lost revenue. Well, we conducted a series of interviews with everyone on this project. We helped them shape the projects to ensure that they meet the requirements of ARPA for those that we could, because a lot of the projects, it was just a matter of you had to help them further develop an additional language and make sure it's clear, because the intent was, so instead of there being 16 million that ultimately would have gone under lost revenue somewhere, and you don't have 16 million of lost revenue, just FYI. We're now at 11 million for ARPA and 5.3 for lost revenue. So we freed up because we took the time and interviewed. We did a oral application with them because it wasn't done at first. So we went back and did it. And as we went through the questions for the application, they started to check the boxes. And those are the boxes that they checked. So now we are 5.3 lost revenue instead of 16 million lost revenue. So you have some left. You have some wiggle room there that you didn't have necessarily before. We're really encouraging you all to move toward your reporting for Treasury to be able to say you have your buckets in line. As you know, there's quarterly reporting requirement. So this is just a proposal for you all to start considering, consistent with what we've been doing with other cities and counties on this ARPA fund. So right now, pre-application requested amount, and we used your pre-application process as community assessment because you're supposed to ARPA encourage community assessment. So that's what it was. You got a feel on what your community wanted. So in that pre-application process, there was 152,000 million, let me stop saying thousand. And now at the application, we're at 220 million roughly. And when you look at the eligible use categories, they're pretty much in line. If you did them as a percentage, they're pretty much in line. What you thought is what you got on the back end, just more. This next slide shows that we had 126 pre-application and 140 applications. So you actually increase the number of applications. So as I said, this becomes part of your community assessment. You did it through an application instead of a survey. So what we want you to consider, your ARPA funding was 12 million. 16 million is done, it's approved. The council approved it, that's off the, so you have 96 million roughly left. Of that 96 million, right now, you have 254 million being requested though. That's the approved projects, that's the NOFO applications, and then the internal projects. So it doesn't match. You have made way more requested funding than you do actual funding. So what we considered, and this is just a consideration, and also we did this analysis to leave the county some wiggle room for your internal projects. And this is for any constituents, this is just a proposal. The council, I just want to be clear, because I don't want it to leave that the council has decided X, Y. No. This is Booth Management Consulting making a presentation to the county for consideration. That's what this is. So we took your buckets, we took the approved council, that is what it is. So that came out to be 15%. Your NOFO applications, it's at 56 million. So we said 50, we did a percentage. We said of that, because this 100% equals your 112 funding. And as I said, so we wanted to get to your funding. Even though the internal projects came to 17 million, we wanted to leave you some wiggle room. So if you had other projects that we're not aware of yet, or that as opposed to all of it going to the grant applicants at this time. So if you were to use, and we can change these buckets, but if you were to say, okay, we have 214 million in grants applications. Can we designate funding like a bucket and say we can't exceed this amount for grant applications? For the evaluation teams, that's critical, because then you're looking at the total projects, and for instance, I'm proposing somewhere around 56 million. So it can be higher because you have more wiggle room. But if you do that, then the evaluation team has a number to work to. They know that we can't approve more than $60 million. That's it. But you still have some funding left for other projects that may come up because you're not fully exhausting all of it. And we broke it out based on the categories, but that's what this is. That's what it is. It's us trying to, It's us trying to give you some parameters to help you do an evaluation. Because if I'm on the evaluation team and I have 214 million, I need to know what my number is that we're working towards. So as I'm looking at the funding, I'm keeping that in mind. So all of the percentages, all of the numbers we can play with. What we would like for you to consider though, is before you go on the evaluation, to assign some buckets. Because otherwise evaluation will be, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it because you don't have a ceiling, you don't have a number to work towards. It's 214 million versus, that's a lot of money. So that's our update. We'll continue to update you through the process as we get through. We communicate, I feel like daily with Ryan and Michelle and Andy. We communicate all the time with them. We get real-time data. This was the online application, which was really easy. I don't think it was difficult. We promised you and we didn't try to make it a hard process. And we can get real-time data anytime. So, whatever information you need, but that's the goal. The hope is that you all will consider potentially assigning a minimum for this pool of grant applications that you want to fund. So any questions, comments? Yes.
Would you repeat again the merit process? So that's clear, please.
Sure. Per the uniform guidance, you have to have the merit is based on evaluation factors. So even in the application, we told each applicant the evaluation factors. Those factors are designed to be merit-based. So the project has to have some performance metrics. There has to be some positive outcome. More importantly, it has to have some impact to COVID. That's the ARPA eligibility, but the merit starts with whatever that grant is. Under the ARPA, that's the big thing. What the impact from COVID. And that's what we're always diving, digging for to make sure you're meeting. That's the big test. But then it gets to being fair and comparable. That's why you have a scorecard, and it's already there. The applicant saw it, so they know what the evaluation factors are. So we'll give to the committee those 3 areas that'll help you have the information for certain factors. But then the committee is going to use that evaluation scorecard, and based on that scorecard, they're going to score each applicant. And so you don't know what the total score is going to be, because you're just scoring your you're just doing your scorecard. But it's 140 applications. So part of the challenge is making sure.
140 right now, you may find out some do not meet your application.
We have 32 right now. I can tell you, we have 32 right now that are non-responsive, meaning we just can't. Yeah. So we're giving them that first cutoff of the 30th. I mean, and then we get to the assessment. So we may lose 32 even before we get to phase 2.
And that makes it a little easier going forward.
I would just challenge whoever's on that evaluation committee to make sure you know the rules, because it's a lot. And if it's not something you've done before, it can be overwhelming when you have that many, and the dollar amounts of some of this grant. One municipality wants 40 million. So
Ms. Booth, following up on what you said, if those 32 applications go by the wayside, are there going to be more applications that you would deem ineligible?
In the second phase, yes.
Okay.
Now, we're not, and if they make it to phase 2, they make it to the evaluation team.
What the recommendation?
Yep. And our recommendation may say ineligible, but you still have the final say. I just want to be clear. Phase 1, that's different, because you don't have a complete package.
And one other question, you were mentioning the risk factor, low, medium. What would constitute high risk? Is that an analysis of the ability or inability of this organization to properly expend money or to complete the project?
Did you read uniform guidance before? Because you said some of the language directly.
I did.
Pretty much. It's various risk factors that ultimately lead to making that determination. Let me give you an example. If you have prior audits and you have findings or material weaknesses, well, that's going to give you a higher score, which is going to increase your risk. We do a Google search. If we do a Google search and we see that your organization is having some kind of legal issue, we got that goes into the evaluation. Another is if you've never had a federal award. If you've never done a federal award before, that's a higher risk because you don't know the rules. You got to learn the rules as you go.
Right.
So these are not Robin's rules. I keep saying that. These are uniform guidance, kind of standard risk factors that everybody uses on federal.
Okay. Are there eligibility requirements for individuals?
See, that's where you get into subrecipient and beneficiaries. This is really new stuff under this ARPA too. So yes, an individual can be a beneficiary. So that person is directly receiving the benefit from that grant.
What are the rules for that as far as eligibility?
It starts with impact. COVID impact starts with COVID impact. So that project has to demonstrate a need, a COVID impact. Then after that, it really gets into that gets you past the eligibility, but then you get into risk factors, and then you get into the budget. Like, what are you asking this money for to do what? That's why budget allowability is so important, because then what are your expenses that you're showing for use of the money?
But there's no eligibility requirement for a person's compensation.
Not individual. That you get into the whole premium pay, which I hate it. I'm not, you never heard that from me. I'm not saying, but that's not an individual. Let me just say that. I can say that.
Just so we're clear on that.
Yeah. One of the primary individuals, those are those that are disproportionately impacted. There's a whole, I don't know your qualified census tracts, but there's certain, you all have across the US, there are qualified census tracts, and individuals reside within those. They're kind of automatically considered disproportionately impacted. So to the extent, but the request still has to meet the rule. Whatever the budget costs, they still got to meet the rules for federal awards. So I can't request it to pay rent. There's an emergency rental assistance program for that. I can't request it to pay, to buy food. It's not a stimulus or that kind of pack. So it has to be able to, so you got to kind of still meet, not kind of, you have to meet the impact of COVID. But if you're in a disproportionately impacted area, or you can prove by income that you're disproportionately impacted, then you don't have to pass that test. You get it.
You said income,
That's part of it.
okay, but that's
Yeah.
important eligibility requirement.
Yeah. If you're an individual trying to
Yeah, I'm
use
talking
that,
about individual. So income is
yeah,
one of the criteria.
it depending on the category, it sure is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good question. So going back to individual. If someone said, you know, I got really bad windows in my house, they're 40 years old, they're cracked, that was not impacted by COVID, right? So that would not be.
Exactly.
Okay.
You still got, and remember, it's over. Your applications are closed, so you won't get a new request, which is still what you have. So at least that window's closed. And we don't have a lot of individuals. Just, I think it was on a prior slide. We do not have a lot of individuals.
Basically,
Yes.
other municipalities in this area, in particular, like the city of Wilkes-Barre, did something where they did actually give amounts of money to individuals, like homeowners,
Yep.
first-time homeowners.
Mhm.
They would do something like assistance with mortgages, business owners, things like that. And I sort of had a similar suggestion for us, maybe at the county level, maybe not necessarily with those specific things, but what if we did something with like utility assistance? Is that
You know, there
something
are
that's
existing
possible?
programs, like emergency rental assistance program,
Yeah.
ERAP, that's a utility assistance program that you all have funding for that now.
So
It might be, I don't know how much you have left. Let me
So
not
because
speak,
because
but
there's already a mechanism for that, then we wouldn't be able to use this money for that type of similar thing.
I'm not saying that, because,
Source.
yeah, you can. But I was just using, for example, other programs that have been made available to address those issues. That all came under the ARPA grant as well. Persons cares in ARPA actually. Yes.
And what would prevent an individual from filing for that? From the other organization, right?
That's called fraud. I do a training on fraud for emergency. That's called fraud. So that's
Well, I mean,
all.
there wouldn't be a cross check with it, because these are two different elements.
In audits, that's when the cross track could occur. Now, because they would have to still do it in their county. So for instance, we have other clients who we audit their ERA programs. So if we see they're getting assistance from an ERA, but then maybe they went to a nonprofit that received ARPA funding and they asked for the same assistance for the same cost, we get them because they're called beneficiaries. And when we do testing, we're looking for other funding sources. So that's what we would get. But it's fraud, and it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of fraud.
Any other council members have questions? Mr. Wilson?
About the revenue loss, you know how roundabout ballpark will have?
I don't.
I'll do it in the budget.
Okay, I don't. I just know we made it better. That's all.
So I said 16 was a little high.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
16.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
And thank you.
And I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot more of us. All right, so we will move on to now the discussion regarding Zigman and Company 2023 bond recommendations.
Good evening. My name is Ruth Morosky Keller. I'm the president of the Zigman Company. We are your county's risk manager. We're contracted. And one of the scopes of service that we are required to do for you folks is to recommend on an annual basis the limit that you should buy of, I will say, insurance, is your bond or your surety for tax collection, and also for the elected officials and for the categories that you have in your home rule. So on page 58, we have our recommendations. And to be quite honest, they're almost identical to last year's. The only thing that's really changed in the data we received is that your tax duplicates went up about $100,000, which really didn't change the numbers at the end when it comes to looking at what the bond should be for the tax collector, which is the major part of what we're looking at. A little background. You have a employee dishonesty policy that is currently with National AIG, one of the AIG companies, and that's $5 million. Under the definition of who's an insured or who's covered as an employee under that particular policy, elected officials fall under that, appointed officials that are appointed for a vacancy. That's a big one that we put in a couple of years ago. Also, the various duties that finance has and all of the employees of the county. So you have $5 million that covers all of those individuals, including yourselves. What is not covered under that particular policy is those duties that are directly involved in tax collection. And from reading the home rule guidance, there are really only 2 individuals who deal with that. So we have looked at those categories. That would be division and head of budget and finance and the tax administrator, which collects taxes for the county. So we have recommended that those particular individuals have separate policies, separate surety limits. So there is a chart on page 59, which gives you the current limits for the different positions. And really, we are recommending the same as we had for last year. So I'm here to answer any questions. I see some new faces here. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. And if I can't answer it, I can always look it up.
Anyone else have questions?
Yeah, I think in the past we weren't able to get some insurance for the limits that you recommend.
We've been pretty lucky I would say for the last, since 2015 or so, maybe 16, that Travelers picked it up at the higher limits. Then we moved coverage to HISAC and a couple of years later, and currently with AIG. So the brokers for the county have been able to keep the same coverages, but moving them to different companies. It's a negotiation process.
If we are not able to get to that.
Or if you're not able to, well, in that case, for those 2 individuals, the minimum that we would recommend would be $1 million.
So try to get the higher limit, but
yes,
if possible, somewhere between that and $1 million.
Yes. I haven't seen any issues that would lead to that. And the market seems to be fairly stable at this point in time, the insurance market. So I don't even anticipate that the cost of it would go up significantly.
So I disagree with you on that. I think
Well-
the cost of insurance all over is going up. But that's,
Yes,
you know, with time will tell.
yes, true. But you've had excellent experience in this area, at least as long as we've been involved in the
I
operation.
think we've done pretty well with our.
You choose good people. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on to the discussion regarding resolution requesting a multimodal transportation fund grant for Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. Mr. Flesh sent an email earlier that he would not be present. I think he addressed hopefully everything. If anyone has any questions, Counselor, are you okay with just, sending an email since he's not here to answer that right now?
Ms. Radel, I think he should be here. When he puts something on the agenda, he has an obligation to be here. So the council, if they have questions or whoever, is here to answer those questions.
I agree. And if there are questions, we can move it. We can
So
push it to
as
another
far as
work
I'm
session.
concerned, I would never vote for this until Mr. Plus arrives and answers questions.
Fine, if the majority council feels that way, we can keep it on another
Is
work
there a
session.
deadline or anything that we're up against with it?
Not that I'm aware of.
So Delaney,
The only
won't
concern, he
negatively
and I went through this, is I understand there was an emergency, so, because I had him speaking on another issue, but the only concern I have, that we tried to flesh out, as you can see, that it's a good project, needs to be done. You get a lot of money, roads for de minimis amount of our contribution. But still, in the out years, 24, if we are on the same glide path, we are, it will constitute a significant part of the gas tax and fuel tax. Large portion of that. I think it's what, in tune of $400,000 plus. But that's an out year, and so I'm not aware of any urgency at this point in time to move forward.
There is a deadline on the multimodal grants. I'm not aware of what that deadline is. So as long as we're not coming up to the deadline, we'll just move it to the next work session and have Mr. Flesh speak to it.
And I just wanted to know, just so everybody knows, that $1,430,000 grant with the match of the county of $429,000. That 429 is included in that 1.4 million. So the actual money coming would be about $1 million. So that 30% match is included in that 1,430,000. It's not 1,400,000 plus.
So that's the include the match.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, moving on, we have the discussion regarding reallocation of IT ARPA funds.
Good evening. When I first came, obviously you do an assessment of what you're left with. And I was left with what the amounts that the council had approved for ARPA projects in IT, and that was in the booth presentation. We're very grateful for that. But as I looked at what my predecessor had chosen to spend those funds on, I thought that there might be another way to look at this that would help us in the near term and also cushion CapEx expenditures to the county going forward. So I thought there would be better ways to invest this money. So I've come up with a plan to take the money that was allocated to the IT projects, and I'd like to lead with the the best news first. $75,000 was allocated to IT out of scope that we don't and shouldn't need. So we're going to return that to the ARPA fund that was designated for the mail ballot sorter in elections for some reason. And so we're gonna turn that funding back because it doesn't apply to IT. But on the other projects, I was trying to look for ways to better invest this money to help us in the near term and also reduce future CapEx. So if you look at the top projects, that it was previously listed as cybersecurity, and the council approved that $425,000. That was all consultants, and I felt that there was a much better way to invest in our IT infrastructure in the county, and also, as I said, reduce future expenses. So I'm proposing that we reallocate those funds we're in desperate need of a new wireless access point system in the county. That's an 8-year investment, so that's going to really help with our CapEx expenditures. We have some of our PCs that are up to 9 years old, and seem to me to be a good way to kind of start our life cycle project with a good investment of one-time funds from ARPA. We do need some support, so some of those things, the Microsoft support, instead of hiring individual consultants, we'd like to contract directly with Microsoft. I think we'll get a much better deal and we'll get a much higher level of support. We do need a little bit of consulting to kind of decouple us from the past. There's not much documentation left to us, so we need some assistance. And we also want to invest in the internal county video equipment. We want to add actually licenses to some of our video equipment so that it can not only be used for Zoom, but also for Microsoft Teams, which is our internal video source. We're just going to add some licenses and equipment. Next project previously listed as assistance with Windows 10. We don't need assistance with Windows 10 upgrade. So we're going to invest in something that I understand the council has been asking for quite some time, which is a comprehensive IT asset management software that will allow us to track our devices both inside and outside the network. I know that's been a request, so we're going to combine it with a new, what the generic term is, a ticketing system. It's an incident management system, but it will also allow us to track all of our assets, even the ones that people are working remotely and don't directly connect to our network. Under a project listed as pandemic help desk, that original amount was $200,000. Some of that was expended by the previous IT staff, but we would like to make an investment in cybersecurity with Microsoft in changing our licensing to use a Microsoft product instead of our current Malwarebytes product, which if you listen to the news lately, they had a huge outage across the world and it did affect us. And we do have many issues with that product, so we'd like to replace it. This would be a one-time investment to align the contracts, and then will be the investment in Microsoft will replace the investment that we have now in Malwarebytes. And just as interest, what I put down at the bottom there that these are the projects that you approved previously that are in process. Just for information, that the top one, virtual infrastructure, we're very happy to announce that the equipment has arrived and it's been much delayed due to supply chain issues. But that project is starting next week. We're very excited about that. I also listed some of the projects we have yet to do. And once again, the returning of the funds for the mail ballot sort. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Case, the Teams program, we used that at the beginning of the pandemic. We didn't have a license.
We do have licenses, but some of, for example, the equipment in the courtrooms, they require special licensing to use Teams with that equipment. So
who purchased that equipment and put it in there without a license?
They have a Zoom license, but not a Team license. So we want to add to the capability of that.
What are they using? Zoom or Teams?
They are using Zoom in those instances, and we would like to have the Teams option because that would be overall less overhead for them to connect, like from the courts to the prison and those types of things.
You talk about CapEx. What's that, capital expenditures?
Capital expenditures, yes.
I think it's for the audience and some myself included. It's good to know what CapEx is. Sometimes, you work in that field all the time. You have some acronyms that you use. The general public may not have some of these acronyms.
Okay.
Yes. A while back, I asked about the utility licensing. Did we need $50,000 licensing? That seems a little exorbitant.
Yeah, I would say that on the renewal of that licenses, you could reduce that by at least half. But that was paid, that was ordered and paid for. But I agree with your assessment that their assessment of what we needed in full Acrobat was widely overspent. We will reduce that in the next cycle.
As far as the video conferencing, is it because they're different pieces of equipment, or are you using something outside of Polycom?
No, the Polycom equipment actually requires different licensing for different applications. So when they were purchased, they were only purchased with the Zoom licenses, and we'd like to make them dual use. So we're just going to add the Teams license. Further, we do have the desperate need for decent webcams in other areas beside the court. They have great equipment, and some of our conference rooms in other buildings, you just need a decent webcam. So part of that money is going to be investing in that hardware as well.
I mean, I was thinking, that should have been rescue money or something back in the day, would have been an eligible use.
When we had the CARES funding.
When we had the CARES funding to actually put the right type of TVs in here, the right type of microphone systems and all. Where I work, boom mics,
Mhm.
and speakers where everybody could hear, and then camera could train on the person who's speaking, you know, instead of having like one single television, you have a presentation on one speaker on the
Mhm.
other television. But,
We can certainly look at that for the future.
yeah, I mean, that clean things up. I mean, this room, if you were here every 2 weeks. To me, it's like just backwards. Just really make a good assessment. What they use it to its full potential, and knowing that you're in the Microsoft driven world, Teams is, you know, it's part of the Microsoft.
Right, we do pay for that.
We pay for it. And it's government license, certainly.
Yes, yes.
You know, we would have been better soon. Soon. You know, I'm glad that we're looking at some of this stuff. I mean, these are things that I stressed a long time ago. Why are we using our lights when we should be using Microsoft product?
Right.
You know, every time I get chastised by predecessor, just for asking.
Well, he's gone.
No. The other thing is, in the past, I know we were doing some of the different projects. Using the side firms. One of the firms was the same firm that quoted different pricing for 911 in the county on the same type of switches. That was light speed.
Uh-huh.
You know, so when they were doing network upgrades, and I think they were really pro stuff. Not always the cheapest. No.
Right.
When they did the financial system, I couldn't piece it together for the cheap price with the engineering cost. Those are the things that I can
I think you can feel good that those top two projects that are in progress were RFPs that you approved. So at least hopefully you got better pricing that way.
All right, thank you. Yep, it's appreciated. Thank you.
Councilmember, but, Mr. Case, we talked at some length anyway. The 75,000 and understand, and God bless you in terms of recognizing it. It could be better used. But since it is also in your wheelhouse, but it's not on this, things that we talked too long, your phone system. Is there any opportunities, and I know that's a low number compared to what we've talked, but before, would it be fruitful, because there's a big bill in your future? At least 1 minute dive, because it is IT related.
Mhm. So the phone system, actually, since we've talked, I've gotten a little bit better news on the longevities. So the current phone system that we have, I was concerned that, and I will be bringing you an agenda item probably next month to replace the maintenance portion of our phone system. Frontier, who currently provides that service, is getting out of the customer maintenance business, and their contract expires in December. So I'll be bringing you that. But along with that, as I investigated that part of it, I was really concerned because I had been hearing that the Mitel equipment that we currently own was going to go end of life sooner. But in talking to some of the resellers in the channel and also some people connected to Mitel, I think we have some time to plan for that. We have at least 2 to 3 years of life left, but it is something that you should be aware that in that time frame, we're going to have to make a capital expenditure 2 to 3 years out, because that equipment that was purchased, I believe, in 2015 is going to go end of life. But the good news is we've been spared by the governor, and we have some more time
But
to
that was about
plan.
$500,000 bill.
That is about $500,000. That's right.
These rates, so 2 years forward,
Yes, sir.
$3 billion.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Any other council members have questions?
I think the Mitel system was purchased before county council came in. So you look at probably 2011, 10, not 2015.
Okay.
So some of that equipment is still very usable.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll have the budget report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I go into the budget reports, I just want to talk a little bit about Robin's presentation, just basically what Mr. Wolovich brought up, which was the lost revenue. So I think everyone knows on the prior audit, before this last one was done, 8.9 million, give or take 20,000 is what we had. We'll go through the number and confirm that it's 5.9. If that's correct, you'd have roughly 3 million left. The interest of lost revenue is that you can use it for any county project. I know we've used it for roads in the past. We can continue to do that, but any function that this government currently does, you can use lost revenue for. So roughly 3 million, and we'll confirm with Booth on that. On the other hand, we did this last audit. The intent was could have taken a 10 million one time or multi-year. We had 8.9 million for this upcoming year. There's 0 because we had higher revenue. So we'll go back and see if we can retake the 10 million. But the problem with that is you never know what the next year is. So you're always, it's easy to second guess. We can take the 10 million one time and then in the future year have 10 million available. So right now we have 3 million and nothing new coming for 2023. Just wanted to go through that. Again, any project. We have the reports. I have the detail. The taxes are at 95%. A lot of the items are at or near prior years. We are working on, there's a couple negative items. I have budget transfers on my desk that were signed by the manager last week. Not a ton, but some. So we'll get those posted to clear some of the negative expense items where the department would take money from other lines within the department and fix that up to true up the dollars. We'll be talking a lot about the budget and this year. So I don't have a big presentation tonight, but I'll gladly answer any questions. Or you can email me after the fact. If you have nothing tonight, you can email me. I'll get back to you.
Just
Sure.
A question, just going back to what Booth had mentioned about maybe 50% going to internal projects. You're saying 3 million is left out of the lost revenue that we could use for roads.
You can use it for roads or any county function. Yep.
So, but for the internal project applications, I know, again, it would be an application that was already submitted. So that doesn't mean that any of the current road problems that we have, an application was submitted for that?
The only application that was submitted, I think it was almost 9 million Mr. Plush put in. I think it was like 8.89. It's on towards the bottom of there. That was for road projects. The only thing I'd like to stress is, as Ms. Booth said, at this point, they're self-certified. So he's saying, not just him, Mr. Plush, our employee, but also the outside contractor, that this is what it's for. It's going to be reviewed by Booth before it gets to committee. And that's whether it's a administrative committee or a council committee. And as Ms. Booth said, that's kind of up to council. We can figure it out in the next 2 weeks. I think the other thing is, so again, 3 million today, may come back 3 weeks from now and say it's 1.5, not because we gave money away, not because of inflation. We might find out that other projects, the 8 million for the that was out, maybe $1 million's not eligible and we have to use $1 million. But as of the self-certified numbers and the numbers that were given to Booth, we have 3 million.
But then on the road and bridge, it's saying stormwater improvements.
Yeah, I think he's trying to put through the stormwater improvements in the roads, because again, there is stormwater work that needs to be done with roads. I'll kind of defer to Booth. And again, when the committee gets them, whether it's a admin committee, council committee, or a hybrid, the committee will have high, low, medium, as Ms. Booth said. So we can kind of go through that at the time. I don't know if it's eligible. If that's all, if that's deemed ineligible, obviously we can't do 9 million of roads because max we're going to have 3 million, and we could have less when we go through the eligibility.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Fund.
Sure.
Mr. Robertson, we'll turn it over to you for the county manager minute.
Thank you, Madam and Council. Only a couple quick items, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Riley to give you a little bit of a deeper dive into economic development and the grant application process that he uses. One, thank you all, those of you who came to the ceremony. I hope you were pleased. They were pleased. You saw that in their faces. We need to do more of that and understand that morale is low, but that didn't cost us virtually anything. And a good pat on the back of your presence made a difference. Two, I've given you a letter there. I sent you the electrons too. It talks to roads. I know you've been inundated with roads. I've been inundated with roads. There's some things we can't comment on because of some litigation issues. So the bottom line is it's open and informative enough to the community to say, we recognize that some roads need attention. We can't answer 400 emails, and it's in excess of 400 emails since I've been here that you're getting and I'm getting that Mr. Fletcher did. We could spend days answering emails, or we can try to do the job. So that's where we stand on that. And unless you have any major concerns, we plan on posting it and trying to inform the community as best we can. This is the status. And this is how we got to where we are. And with that, I'd like to introduce, I think all of you know, Mr. Riley, been here for 20 plus years. And he wants to talk a little bit about his program, because to me, these are some good news stories we should celebrate.
Good evening. I can assure you that I'm not going to be as good or interesting as Ms. Booth was, but I know I'm standing in the way of the conclusion of this meeting, so I will be brief. So we're going to start and talk a little bit about the consolidated planning development goes. And so Luzerne County, through the Office of Community Development, carries out federal programs administered by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The consolidated plan is the document that the county submits to the U.S. Department of Housing and Development as an application for funding for the Community Development Block Grant Program, the Home Investment Partnership Program, and the Emergency Solutions Grant Program. We are the lead agency responsible for the development of that consolidated plan. These are entitlement funds, not competitive funds, and we are obligated to follow this process in order to have access to these funds. My office and these programs are 100% federally funded, so no general fund money is included in any of these activities. So the action plan and HUD's consolidated planning process, the 2023 action plan for Luzerne County is the fourth year for which the 20 to 24 consolidated plan strategy will be implemented. The plan identifies housing and community development needs and provides a strategy for addressing those needs over 5 years. The strategy was developed based upon the needs of low to moderate income residents and those with special needs in relationship to existing trends and conditions. The strategic plan identifies 7 priority needs based on the needs assessment, market analysis, and interaction with public service and economic development agencies, local governments, and community leaders. You see the 7 there: affordable housing, economic development, non-homeless public services, homeless public services, public facilities and improvements, slum and blight removal, and planning and administration. Those are carried out primarily through 5 major programs that address the priority needs: the Emergency Housing Rehab Program, the Growing Homeowners Program, the Capital Improvement Program, the Scattered Site Demolition Program, and Public Service ESG Program. Based on 2022 allocations, these are the estimated available funds for the 3 programs, the 3 primary programs that my office administers. So I'd just like to highlight a few ongoing completed projects this year. Newport Township Streetscape Program, a project in Glen Lyon. It's all of Main Street sidewalk, major sidewalk improvement project. West Pittston Borough Street Sewer Improvement Project, Luzerne Ave, curb sidewalks, etc. Salem, Jenkins, and Damon Streets, I think were also included as part of that. Freeland Borough, Washington North Center, Arthur Streets. Wyoming Borough did an ADA project, which was installing handicap ramps in several of the borough-owned roadways. We've also this year assisted 15 families purchase new homes. Through our funding to the Weinberg Food Bank, we were able to supply 450 meals and 195 program sites and 38,000 and serve 38,000 people. So some of the success over the years, and not just this year, since 2005, over 400 families have purchased new homes through the funds that we administer. Since 2013, approximately $1 million has helped eradicate 50 blighted properties in our boroughs and townships. And over the last 5 years, we've committed approximately $5 million to help reconstruct county-owned roads and bridges. And that's always a priority for us as well. So that's just a very quick snapshot of what we do and how the process is administered and how the process is followed in order to obtain the community development funding. So thank you for your time. If anyone has any questions, certainly.
Mr. Riley?
Yes, sir.
A couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3, you got notification from HUD that you had to spend some monies.
Yes.
You wanna
Yeah, so
clarify that?
many years ago, we had a very successful economic development program. One of my predecessors had set aside annual dollars and created a revolving loan fund to help businesses over the years. That was allowable under the HUD regulations. About 4 or 5 years ago, HUD decided that they didn't like communities having a large pot of money sitting idle for many years. So they instructed us we had to start to whittle that down. At the time, County Manager Dave Pedri advocated to do an infrastructure program. We put out applications, competitive applications to many of the municipalities, and we took over $15 million, and we are still administering those funds throughout many of the communities, including some county projects. And so we are still working to whittle that down, because every time someone pays off from the loan program, someone sells an economic development group might sell a piece of property, so we'll get $500,000 back, and then we program that money into community projects.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just would like to make a few comments and then make a recommendation here if I can regarding the roads, county-owned roads and bridges. I myself, and I'm sure all of you here, when you drive on a road in very bad condition and you drive on it every day, you learn where those gigantic potholes are. And rather than bang them real hard with your wheels, you usually swerve around them. Well, sometimes the potholes are so large on the right-hand side of the road. I have swerved across the double yellow line to avoid hitting these giant potholes, or else my car would be in a shop every week. It's a dangerous situation. And I think with our county roads, especially the worst of the worst, we've been warned over and over and over by many residents who come to this meeting, give us photos and pictures. They drive on these roads every day. I'm very concerned about culpability and liability, because we've been fairly warned many times over and over. And if something bad happens, or I'm going to say when something bad happens, because there's so many miles of bad roads. God forbid, there's excess of ice on the road because the road's in such poor condition, a horrible crash occurs, someone's badly injured, or even worse yet. The lawsuits are coming. We all know about lawsuits filed against the county over and over from people that have mishaps, falling in parking lots and whatnot. And we've been fairly warned many times over and over. So as we sit here, we're acting as our own insurance company, and we're self-insuring ourselves against all of this liability that's laying out there. We know it's there, the liability, and we're choosing to not really tend to it. The biggest argument we present to the public is there's not enough funding. Well, the good news is we heard tonight there's approximately $3 million available in the lost revenue pot. And I would like to propose take about $4 million from that LSA money bond that we just voted to accept and grant. And that would give us, $4 million is less than 10% of the whole pot of money. And that would give us about $7 million to address immediately some of the worst roads. I don't think we could keep kicking the can down the road and wait another winter and then another winter after that and keep telling the people we don't have enough money. There's 7 million right there that I say we could easily tap into right now. We have all this liability, and I would like to recommend a schedule of, in the next 3 weeks, meet with Road and Bridge Department, with yourself, Mr. Riley, Mr. Robertson, the county manager, identify which of those roads would encompass that 7 million, and get an assessment of those roads, whatever engineering company we normally use to assess the really bad spots like we have in the past, and start getting estimates for that work, so that come February, which is only 5 months away, we could put those projects out to bid. And then by March, we'll have the bids back and we can have a notice to proceed by April. And that way they don't go another whole summer, because if we don't move now on this till next February or March, that stuff's not gonna get done maybe at all next year by the time we get through the process. So I would like to recommend that, Mr. Robertson, you meet with these people over the next couple of weeks and start hashing out a plan like that, so we address some of these serious road issues, so that we don't have to sit here and incur all this liability. God forbid a school bus has a bad mishap on one of those county roads with children. I mean, could you imagine the lawsuits because we're fairly warned over and over? God forbid, but I'd like to recommend that. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Riley? Mr.
I know back in commissioner days, they used to approve most of the CDBG money coming into the county. Why, and the last time we did it, the council was 2014. How come now consistency has not progressed over the years?
That was just change in county managers and legal guidance.
Because the county is likely to be the sub-recipient, correct?
The county is the recipient.
The recipient and the sub-recipient would be like
Yes.
And I would think as a body of government, when we enter into intergovernmental cooperation agreement under the law, the council should be part of that process.
I have no issue with that.
I mean, one of the things that I was a little dismayed about was going through some of the contracts, finding stuff in December of last year, where there were extension agreements that were intergovernmental cooperation agreements where the previous county manager had forgotten to sign them or didn't sign them for 1 year, and then subsequently a year later, Ms. Procomo signed them, and there was a lapse in between those contracts.
Well,
I mean, you get what I'm saying, though, is if
No,
you're
no,
doing an extension,
I understand, but
sign legally,
I can tell you
then
that's not exactly how that happened. The way that happened was there were several amendments to a particular contract. So each of the amendments were signed. However, say when the third amendment went over to the county manager for signature, the employee sending that over printed out the contract and the amendments off the computer and sent them over to the courthouse for signature, instead of putting all the signed amendments together as a package and then sending it over for signature. So I can assure you, all of those amendments were executed.
I mean, they're done annually, so you can't sign in the future, and you can't go back.
No, nothing was backdated. In fact,
I mean, the stuff that's out there shows there's no signature on it.
but I've turned over to the Office of Law all of the signatures that were signed with those contracts.
Because I mean, what I've seen on there too was there was a borough elected official who signed after he left public office. There's one on there.
Well, I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that.
So it just seems a little sloppy. It's not organized. The way I took it was that there was a lapse in the agreement.
There, I can assure you there was not.
And anytime there's a quote unquote intergovernmental cooperation agreement, this body here, the 11 of us, is the county of Luzerne. We're the ones that are usually responsible for signing off as the county of Luzerne, not county executive branch or government. And that's under the law. future, I think we should be.
Well, I
part of
think,
that
I think this year, you, along with my budget, you will see the action plan as prepared. So you'll be able to comment on it and you know, provide input. As far as executing each and every grant agreement, whether the council has to approve each individual agreement, I can't speak to that. That's really a, yeah, I mean, that's a question for the Office of Law.
I mean, I know other counties, their commissioners, their councils in Home counties actually approve just about every one of these programs. I mean, it's maybe a one-page resolution.
Right.
Department county.
Well, and again, you'll have that, you'll have the list of activities and as part of the application, as part of the budget process. Sure.
And regarding, you know, blight and slum removal, we need to get the blight committee active and engaged. I don't know what the slowdown is or why it has been inactive for so long. I mean, because when you look at maybe 50 properties since 2013, it's only 4 a year, which is very good. At best, I think, you know, part of the initiatives with the RA and the CUs, we have like slump. I think we need to push the gas to the pedal to the metal.
Well, there's always legal issues involved in that, as well as resources.
Sure.
Typically, there's tons of legal issues involved, properties in estates, properties in names of folks that are outside the area.
Sure.
But there certainly is a tool to address blight that a previous council had considered at one point. And it was a state initiative for the counties to adopt a fee on deed transactions that would go into a demolition fund to address blight exclusively. And I know the legislature had passed that several years ago. It came before a previous council. At that time, they did not want to adopt that resource, but that is another resource that would come in handy if you wanted to help eradicate blight.
You also have, you know, the blight committee very
But you also have to give, my point is, you also have to give the blight committee the tools to address that. And you know, the blight committee does need resources. So that is a potential resource if the council wanted to consider.
And I think, you know, we're at that point that we would do that. You know? So I think, you know, just because it may have not passed in the past, doesn't mean to give up on it and move on because there are different members here now. I think maybe we got to circle back and look at it.
Duly noted.
Okay.
Can we give a couple more questions for Mr. Riley? All right, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We now have public comment. Anybody public comment?
Good question. Mr. Roberts, do you know if there was any appointments to the redevelopment or the planning commission to blight property review committee?
I'm not aware. Mr. Riley, would you know? I'm sorry, what was the question?
If there's supposed to be a representative from the redevelopment authority and the planning commission for blight property, I don't know if there was.
I know that the redevelopment authority board selected a member and forwarded, but my understanding was the county council had to accept that. So I don't know where we are with that. That was some time ago.
Okay. Did you receive any notification back in?
I would have received it. Did you get anything?
I know who the person is. I'm not quite sure if I've received it in writing. I mean, if they want to forward that again, that would
I'll
be
certainly
great.
circle back and
Yeah, I mean, if they did, it's like you're talking over a year ago.
probably. I think part of it was that there was no, I don't know if there was a representative of council who was going to lead the initiative because a previous council person had left and it was kind of fell out of place.
Okay, we can look into it.
Mr. Robertson, this week we received an email with some increases in departments. Were you aware of those?
Yes.
Okay. I find it bothersome that, and I hate to say this, but we rewarded the department that had some issues. I think, once again, I spelled this out at the last meeting. I think there's people that work here for a lot less money. And I think it's more important to bring those people up before we worry about the division heads.
I'm not aware of any division or even the department head who were on the list. If you have a list that has them, I'm not aware of that. I didn't concur with any of that. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just I don't know of any, and we've talked about that here. I agree with you, Kevin. I think we need to start, really, in my opinion, you raise it mid-level, we're losing mid-level. We need mid-level. We need new leaders, 2, 3, 4 years. We're losing attorneys and we're losing caseworkers. And the unions take care of the union side. So you're looking for decision makers. So, and I know one of the council members asked for a roster. I'll get that. My recollection since I've been here is maybe a handful. And I believe it's been overall a pushback to the general fund. We're not asking for any more money aggregate now. That's my recollection. Okay.
And I agree with that, but along with that comes, higher unemployment, workers' comp, there's other monies that are
Yes,
involved. It's just not a straight wash. So we got to keep that in mind.
There's a tooth to tail, but I was asked yesterday by a council member and with others present that when we talked in my interview, I talked about a deeper dive. That's what I'm starting. Where the resources are, I personally don't see, and I think most of you agree, we're not going to be able to hire 50 caseworkers. We've never even gotten close to that. So I'd like to start aggressively looking at money from there, from attorneys, from 911. What that fine line is, I don't know. I need leadership to help me because I'm not down in 911. But I think we're 28 short on 911 operators, for example. We're not going to hire. So that's an example of trying to use the resources and exercise them to the parameters and then push it back to the general fund. So maybe in your philosophy, or at least as I understand it, trying to take care of those who are leading the county and making the decisions.
I agree, and I did reach out to an individual who works for the state, and he's more than willing to come in here for a work session in the near future. And then next year, they will be more than happy to study the whole county.
That will be, it's very clear, and I think we'll see how it goes in the budget process. And I'll reserve it for next time, but my strongest recommendation is council, we need to do a deep dive on positional and compensation. Well recognizing we have some good plans for pensions, people stay for that, but it's not putting gas in the car. I heard that yesterday from 9 workers. It's not paying a mortgage. So is there a possibility of shifting? And we need some outside views of what can we do. Have him call me, but we need to get someone who does that for a living nationwide, and it will cost money, just like the prison service. But it hasn't been done since 2013 or 14.
And the good news is they said we qualify for at least 50% funding, it's not 75. So
I'd love to talk to this woman or man. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Robertson, you're right. There was a salary study done with Mr. Lott. That's how far back. You mentioned the fact there's 28 openings at 911 operators.
Something like that.
Well, give or take, whatever it is currently. You know, it's always up. But that's covered under the CBA. So we passed the CBA about 3 months ago. 4 911 operators. Anybody's covered under that, they have a contract that's in place now.
Not disagreeing.
Yeah, so we don't.
Yeah. Well, we have positional issues. You can come in as an attorney and we heard from some of you heard yesterday from 3 attorneys, the DEA, the public defender, and this. You can be an attorney here for 10 years and make the same amount of money other than maybe a 1 or 2%, and they're not staying. So that's what I mean by positional study. There's no upward mobility. Most people don't do that. So it all goes in that. It goes in unions. It goes into the whole mix in my mind. And yes, a lot of it's reimbursable too. So that's why we need I believe we need a deep dive. And I'll put it in the budget. We'll see if we can foster that through. I don't know what it looks like, but any thoughts you have on, because I think it can be expensive. Thank you.
Mr. Robertson, just one quick thing regarding the salary increases and moving people around. We got this email from our human resources director, Ms. Gavlik. And many times in the past, she sends these out and they eliminate positions, they add positions, they change salaries, they increase salaries. But this is the statement I always have concern about. She concludes with, these changes will not have a negative impact on the budget. Is she doing an analysis of just the budget, or is she including the increases, sometimes large increases in our pension obligation for those employees?
I'll have to do it.
Because that's
I
important,
understand,
right?
yeah.
That's pretty important
I'm
because,
guessing on the surface, it is a quid pro quo.
right, and
I'm
that's,
guessing, but I
that's
don't
why
know.
I would, wish they would look at all of it when they do it, rather than just say, oh, it's not gonna really affect the budget, but it could jack up our pension obligation.
What they're saying there, what that statement says, is we have money left in our salary line item. Why they have money left could be various reasons, vacancies, whatever it might be besides that. And it's true, for this year, 2022, they're not gonna ask for more money in the budget because they have vacancies or whatever. 2023 is a different ballgame. Because now you're talking about a full year, and if you have that person in place for a full year, they change the salary from whatever it is to a new salary that's higher. That higher level is going to go into the budget. And it's going to cost more.
Right.
And like the associated costs that you said, like pension and things, yeah, that all goes with it.
And that's my fear, is that they're simply looking at, on the surface, the budget at the moment for this year. And they're not, like you said, looking in the future. And this pension obligation that, we're faced with, Brian, because of the losses now in the market and where we're at, our obligation is probably going to increase of what the county has to contribute to it, or be pressure on us to next time around increase the contribution like we just did, I think, a month or two ago here. So I just don't think that the department heads and division heads are considering that when they're making these changes.
I'll try to, I understand your question, and
Okay.
I can't give you crystal clarity
Okay.
other than,
All right.
as I know, and I think I kind of relate to the Councilman McGinley, it's revenue neutral or less or more right here, right now, a picture. But at the same time, I'm also been looking at vacancies historically. And the example is Child and Youth Services. They've never had anywhere close to less than 20. So can we better exercise the money? And that's not a big pot because it's primarily state reimbursed. There's never been less than 5 vacancies, as I understand, years in the public defender, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's money that maybe we could be exercising and saving the general fund, or trying to keep those positional or build things to keep staff longer. Just thoughts. You may or may not, it may not be the way we had.
Thank you. We're now open for public comment, Mr. Griffin.
Hello, Council. I want to thank Council for keeping an open mind on, as this ARP is getting closer to the checks being written, and thank Council for having an open mind on maybe getting a small portion of the 96 million directly in the hands of the needy citizens. Mr. Lombardo asked about possible utility payments, maybe directly to the utility companies to help people in need. We've had 7 utility rate increases in 13 months. And they've struggled during COVID for that, paying their bills and whatnot. A lot of them are still behind. Mrs. Booth did not say Council could not award ARP assistance for utility. She said she didn't say it's not possible. She said, but there are other organizations or agencies that provide utility help. UGI and the power companies, they give certain amount to help needy people, but it's not enough, of course. Wilkes-Barre gave $7,500 for home improvement, although there's already programs now existing. Mr. Casey said HUD helps with home purchasing. Wilkes-Barre gave $7,500 to help purchase a new home, although HUD is already helping. So Wilkes-Barre was able to get over that. and still provide $7,500. Wilkes-Barre, there's other agencies like CEO and whatnot that helps with a home improvement. Wilkes-Barre was still able to use ARP money to help with people's water heaters, furnaces, front porches, and roofs through $7,500. And Mr. Casey also said that HUD helps the businessman and whatnot. Mr. Brown was able to get $7,500 to businessmen to open a business in Wilkes-Barre, even though there are other agencies doing the same thing. So Mr. Lombardo's suggestion about helping a block of money to help the senior citizens or the needy who are eligible under the ARP income guidelines to receive some money to get them through the winter. CEO provides assistance for insulation, new windows. There's a 2-year wait with the CEO receives money from the federal government. If council could get CEO, I don't know if they're one of the 140 applicants, additional money so that it could eliminate the 2-year waiting list so that people, besides getting utility help, can get these windows and insulation and eliminate the 2-year waiting list. So what Mr. Lombardo talked about as far as help with utilities, council can do that. Council already gave 16 million away. They can help with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Any other members of the public?
I just have 30 seconds. Can I approach everyone? Because I reviewed your website and I believe everyone needs a new headshot. You really should represent
Thank
yourself
you.
professionally, and cell phone photos don't do that. Okay? Oh, it's all about the lighting. It's all about the lighting. Yeah. And then you can also research more about me and how much I give back to nonprofits and how I help the community all the time.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that wish to speak?
Can I speak to something real quick that Mr. Griffin said? I would happily go on record as saying that I would love to allocate at least $10 million to go directly to the public in some way, shape, or form, especially senior citizens, for something like, I just suggested utility assistance because that was something that I don't think other organizations were doing. The city of Wilkes-Barre did not do that. I spoke to Mayor Brown last week about the specifics. And I think that, you know, as far as people that are affected by COVID and you know, entities that are affected by COVID, people that are on fixed incomes are one of the most. And I think that we really need to do something for them. So I don't know what that specific number would be, but I would say, you know, just a rough estimate that I did was like at least $10 million I'd be fine with. And I would hope that other members of council would maybe come up with a similar suggestion or maybe an alternative, but I think that we need to do something directly for the citizens.
I think if you ask Mr. Riley, he could probably tell you what programs are available.
Sure.
Utility assistance, et cetera. But a lot of those programs were put in place during the pandemic, rightfully so. And if you watched, we had full-page ads in the paper. We're trying to get people to apply for some of that money. I don't know, Mr. Riley, have you expended all that kind of money? See here?
You left.
I think if you ask me, I think there's still money available.
Right.
And we should access that money.
Yeah, and
Make sure that
I will say that when I spoke to Mayor Brown last week, I was actually surprised by the number of people that he said had applied, had gotten money, and I thought it was actually a pretty low number. If I had known that there was like free money out there and I lived in the city of Wilkes-Barre, I'd be the first one in line. But it was a fairly low number based on, and there were specific requirements, so I think we should also look into that.
Minimum income is very low.
Yeah.
the other part is one of the programs the CEO operated for many years, and unfortunately, some of the funding has dwindled over the years. It's called the chore program. Chore program did the little things that people need in their homes. You know, come and fix the faucet, make sure the toilet's working properly, make sure the furnace has been maintained, cleaned up and things. And that was a very successful program for a lot of people, particularly people who were in the low income and others. That would be a program that I personally would advocate for the county putting some money in that type of program. CEO administered it, did the eligibility, so we wouldn't have to do some of those things. And they could still maintain all that. And I think you provide great service to a lot of people who are in that gray area maybe. Don't have anybody locally from their family that can help them, do those little chores around the house.
There's no other members of the public. We have a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, opposed, meeting adjourned.